Welcome to Smashing Success Stories. I am your host, Karen. I'm a speaker, trainer, and consultant. This podcast is meant to inspire people who want results without compromising who they are. This is for folks that want to stay true to themselves while living in a world that challenges our humanity. So welcome, humans, champions, legends, to Smashing Success Stories. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we're doing this together. Let's get started. Hello, legends, and welcome to Smashing Success Stories. This is your host, Karen, and I am joined today by the amazing, awesome, brilliant Dr. Allison Scavo, aka Dr. Harvard. Hey, Dr. Scavo.
Hello. Thank you for
So
having me.
glad to have you today. Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. And thanks for continuing to communicate with me. I know that we both have schedules and lives and stuff that comes up, so I really appreciate your flexibility in making this happen today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and your flexibility as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, so I do have a set of questions that I like to ask toward the kind of latter part of the conversation. I want to focus this kind of initial component of it on you and why I wanted to bring you on the program. So let's go ahead and start with that. One of many, many things that I admire about you is that when you have a goal, you set your mind to it and you are unstoppable. So when we talked initially about your 20-year plan, you said that that was something that you started when you were 5?
Right. Yes, I did.
And all of those metrics you hit, including where you wanted to be at your 20-year plan. And then once those metrics were met, you created another plan.
Yes.
What started this? What inspired you? And how do you do it?
Okay, I love this because no one's ever actually asked how this all came to fruition. So I grew up in a world of chaos and controlled uproar. So not necessarily in the negative sense, right? But there was always something exciting going on. There was always loud noises around. My dad pulled mobile homes when I was growing up. And so I would be put into a playpen and I would watch everybody else work, or I would start to pick up sticks and walk beside my dad who was holding cinder blocks, right? So I knew when I went into kindergarten, because we lived across the street from the elementary school that I later attended, and also my sister, who's 14 years my elder, became a teacher at. I grew up watching all of those children go play, and I learned to ride my bike there. And so when I got to school, it was my birthday. My first day of kindergarten was my birthday. And so I just knew this was where I was going to school. This is what I was doing, and this is where I was going to go. So my first interaction with a social worker gave me a bear with glasses, and it may have been a police officer that physically handed it to me, but I do remember hearing the words social worker and this really nice lady coming and helping us. And she was so sweet that I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And that is what I went to school for when I was 18 and 19 with social work. But I had to do a case study where I became extremely emotionally invested, and all I was doing was reading a paper. And I understood at that moment that my soul was not made for that type of social work. So I changed my major. I became a body piercer. I changed my major again, right? So I still made sure that in the end, I did some form of social work. So by the time I got everything together and I reassessed that plan, because the 20-year plan, in my opinion, had been met, because by the time I was 20, I was in school for social work, but I kind of readjusted it, went back and got my degree in biology, elementary ed, special ed, and then educational administration. Once I knew that that was the field of social work I wanted to do was education, that was my next 20-year goal. And I met that 5 years early. So I even took a 5-year break or a 3-year break in between there. Sorry, pardon me. So it just kind of all came to fruition, because when things happen in your life and wrenches get thrown in, it almost makes you want to achieve that more. So it doesn't matter how many naysayers you have or people that are questioning what you're doing or why you're doing it. It just motivates me so much more to get it done. And my personality I get this from my father, so I am going to throw him under the bus. If you're not first, you're last. If you're not first, you're the first loser. Get in the back of the line because you're not a. So getting a 4.0 was non-negotiable to me personally, because when my dad was racing cars, he was the first. And so when my dad pulled mobile homes, he made sure that you have a plan financially, time wise, and you have to plan out your route. And this is where you go. And same when he got into truck driving, I remember him reading an atlas before we would even leave the parking lot, and he would say, "I have 4 hours to get to this highway." And so that mentality of thinking was ingrained in me. So by the time I got to, kindergarten, where it was my birthday, and everyone was there for me, everyone was getting cupcakes because of me, in my opinion, right? It was the second day of school. I realized, oh, this is what school is about. Oh, okay, got it. You guys can go here too, I guess. And so, when my sister became the kindergarten teacher and I was in 5th grade, that really just set the trajectory for my life. Like, I knew that I knew it was going to involve children somehow. And I just finished up my 11th year. And so even though sometimes those plans can change, or sometimes really serious moments of crisis happen in your life, you just push that much harder. Sometimes you have to lose sleep. Sometimes you have to hire help to get things done, because if you don't lean on your support system, you will lack the resources needed to meet the goals of your everyday life in the meantime. So, like, for example, if I knew that my dissertation was due in 3 weeks and I had laundry to do, I just called somebody for help to, that's a broad example, but, I would say for the last month, I did have a housekeeper, so that, like, my 15-year-old son didn't have to do the dishes all by himself every single night, because I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning. One of my best friends on the entire planet found out that we were mostly surviving off of fast food. And so she brought vats of food for us so that we could cut up, and so that Zion would have meals that were home cooked, And so you really have to call on your people, because those deadlines are going to be there. Your life is not going to make anything more accommodating. It's actually probably only going to get more complicated as time goes by. Sure, you understand the systems more, but that doesn't mean that the Department of Education isn't going to change something, that laws aren't going to get brought into the middle while you're actively writing your paper, that you don't have to go and erase completely and rewrite when it's due tomorrow, things like that. So I also really learned from my dad to get ahead of the game. So when I would first get my classroom and you had weekly lesson plans, I would do my lesson plans by the unit. Kindergarten's a really easy example, but it was also my first classroom. But, like, if you're doing the unit of the water cycle, right, I would just write out that entire plan. And when you get done, you have like 6 weeks worth of lesson plans, and you can update them, obviously, but I would update by the unit. So I would have like a month and a half done in advance. So that would give me time to, like, work on my master's program when I got home, instead of having to do lesson plans, because I don't know a single teacher on this planet that actually uses their planning period to write lesson plans. It just doesn't happen. And if they do, I commend them, because they are a rarity and extremely organized to a method that this Virgo commends. I just never, I could never do it. So yeah, I would say, honestly, like, they say, like, shoot for the moon, because worst case scenario, you land on the stars. That's what I mean when I say I want to be the best. I'm not saying that I'm going to have a better paper than everybody else. What I'm saying is I want to be able to compete with the smartest people in the room. And I have had to overcome so much in my life in order to prove that using linguistic advantages is one of the only mannerisms that I've ever had in control of, to prove that I am not what people are saying or thinking or feeling. I come across as almost intimidating at first. I've heard that word quite a bit, because I am so heavily covered in tattoos. And then you hear me speak and it's just like, oh, she's actually really nice. And so, you have to keep up with these things in order to make sure that you don't get lost in the shuffle either, right? Because once someone has a negative connotation of you, that's going to spread far more easily than they're going to tell 3 more people that you were rude than they would have if you were super nice to them. And so you just really have to watch that, especially when that target's already been on your back. Being born in a trailer park that my parents owned, my last name was on that trailer park. So everyone that I grew up with knew that I was just this trailer park kid. I grew up being told, you're so pretty, you could marry a doctor. I beg your highness pardon. I got a 4.0 in my doctorate program because of that sentence. So keep talking.
Of that success out of spite.
That spite is the biggest answer that I can provide. It's a lot of preparation, a lot of planning, a lot of thinking, but most of it is just spite. Keep talking because I'm going to win. That's how I got where I am. And the last 20 years, the first 20 years was like having to prove that I was better than what everyone had told me that I was. So I was 12 pounds at birth. I grew up being told I was fat. I was really loud and obnoxious. So I was told that those were things that I should be aware of and correct. Well, all I did was just go teach students who have autism and were extremely loud. And all of a sudden, I was no longer considered a loud and obnoxious person. I was considered a role model that someone else can look up to and channel those personality traits into a mannerism that leads to success, right? So because I was the loudest in the room at times, I was the one that was able to stand up for someone who had a question that we talked about yesterday in a lesson, but they didn't want to speak up about it, or they didn't like the way that a teacher gave a lesson. I was the one that would be like, hey, can you help again? So you can utilize these traits to your advantage when you are meeting these goals instead of letting the negative talk get to you, because people will always have something to say. And the ones that are rooting for your downfall will be the loudest about it.
The good news about that is if you're inspired by spite, then hearing those loud voices, it's just adding more fuel to the fire.
Exactly. Spite is a big motivator for me, especially in the last, I would say 5 years. I would say I have done a lot of changes to my life to avoid any sort of negative connotation on anybody else or negative feelings on anybody else, to present myself in a positive light. Because when you talk about negative people, that also says a lot about you too, right? So completing goals with high achieving success and honors and awards says more than the naysayers have ever said about me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
real talk. Another thing that I wanted to kind of get your insight on is how you had this chaos, right? And you are super structured, super focused, super organized. Do you find that that structure gives you peace to kind of like disrupt that chaos, or do you feel like you are inherently a structured person?
Yeah, I absolutely do believe that. And I will tell you, the first time that I ever really had that cognizant thought, I would say that my brain kind of woke up to this realization. For 17 years, my mom worked at a liquor store and she made minimum wage. And at times we didn't even have a car. It was close enough that she could walk, but I was sitting in the back a lot. I mean, of the back of this liquor store for the vast majority of my childhood, unless I was with babysitters that were children of her regulars. So that was huge to me, because I remember playing with cigarette butts as toys. I remember playing with vodka bottles and stacking them and creating pyramids. I remember they would put the displays out of liquor bottles and beer bottles for holidays, right? I would get in the middle of them and that would be my pirate ship for the day. And I would just hide when a customer came in. That is so chaotic. And I remember the day that I looked around. I mean, I must have been 5 or 6, and I looked around and I was like, I don't think any of my other friends hang out in the back of a liquor store. I just really don't think that anyone goes home from school and walks up to the liquor store. So that's my first thought that I had about it. But then I remember in kindergarten, we had a field trip where we walked to the ice cream shop, and my mom was walking out of the liquor store at the same time we were walking in. And I remember knowing at the time that my mom worked there, and she was obviously, to me, just getting her check. But to everybody else, around me, I realized, oh, my mom's walking out of a liquor store, and she didn't even, this was in the 90s, she didn't even have to check me out. She just saw me and was like, oh, I'm going to take Allison home and blah, blah,
Right.
blah. But I just remember that moment being like, I don't ever want this. Right. And I do know for a fact, after all of the chaos that I saw that was brought in after the bar scene and the biker scene and every other scene that they wanted to get themselves involved in as I grew up, it was just rough to see. And I remember actively seeing things happen in front of me that no child should ever see. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to do that. And that is, 100%. I would say that school to me was a release. School to me was an opportunity to not only just learn, but to be loved. My kindergarten teacher name was Miss Love. And so I just remember, it being a place of love. And my best friend was there and I loved her so much. And I do distinctly remember having that thought of like, this is never going to be me. And it never was, not even for a moment. I still pass by that Sedalia, Missouri, tiny little State Fair Spirits. I'll name them because if you know me, you already know. But that State Fair Spirit store, and I still go in there sometimes, and the same owners are still there. And it's like, I literally grew up here. And it just shows you, even after, what was that, 20 years ago? If she started when I was 25 years ago, I still remember that back layout of that store and just remember, this is not for me. Like, just play. I distinctly remember playing in ashtrays. Like, just never, ever, ever. No child should ever do that. I fell off the back of a golf cart there and I ripped the back of my knee open and bad. And I needed stitches. I needed shots. I needed tetanus, you name it, right? I needed medical attention. And my mom put me in the back and put cardboard boxes over it, like to tourniquet it, I guess, because we didn't have anything cloth at all. And then we had to go home and I never got medical attention for it at all. But I just remember telling myself, like, your child will go to the doctor. You're going to be taken care of. And so I'm not saying that my parents were neglectful. This was the 90s and we lived in the middle of Nowheresville, and it was just a different time, really. What is acceptable then would never be acceptable now. And I just remember, I remember
we're under surveillance all the time.
Exactly.
Cameras and social media. And if the one snitch would have caught your mom just trying to get by and you just 100%. Being a child, being attended to in a home that couldn't afford childcare or a babysitter or anything like that, people don't think about those variables. Now, we're not advocating for like abandoning children, and we definitely understand that times have changed, but that era, to your point, was completely different 100%. Than the era that we're living in right now.
Exactly.
Totally different.
So that is another point that you bring up. I feel that if my mom would have had social media, my life would have been completely different, because she could have just said, I need childcare for this coming week at these hours, and anyone could have came and gotten me. And I've done the same thing for my own son. The only reason I was able to get my bachelor's degree is because I was able to make a social media post that says, I need help getting my son to school. And there was someone in Florida that left their house early every single day to get to my house to make sure that my son was at school every single day so that I could go to my internship. And so that is a huge point that I want to make, is like, when I say these stories, it's like, I was taught a lot about what not to do, but it was also such a different time. But anyway, that's how it all, I did see chaos and I knew that that wasn't for me. What's funny is it's really hard to take that mentality out when it's ingrained in you, because I noticed that for a portion of my life, I did surround myself with friend groups and boyfriends that were inherently bad for me in some way or chaotic. And I had to come to that realization and be like, you are so chaotic that being around you makes me feel like I'm at home. And that was a feeling that I had to unlearn, that home is not safe for me. And that I had to create my own version of home in order for me to succeed in my life. And that was a hard realization, because you think like, oh, this person loves me, but then you look at what they're actually doing on the side, and that's not love at all, you know?
Yeah.
So realizing that was really difficult, in a physical manner, mentally, emotionally. It rewired my brain, to realize that I was kind of addicted to chaos in a sense, if not addicted, at least drawn to it. At the very
Sure.
bare minimum, I was definitely drawn to it. And so I've had to separate myself from friend groups as a whole. Or my biggest saying now is always leave before the devil arrives. So I love my friend groups. I love the people that I surround myself with. I love my support group. But there are times where other people come in or get invited, or we're at a show, and there's a sense of energy that I get, and I automatically know what that feeling is, and it's time to go. And sure enough, 9 times out of 10, it will come back to me that there was either a fight or some other tragic event or some argument that was minor. But had I have stayed, I would have had to observe it. And no
Yeah.
argument is minor to me at this point.
Sure.
My system will react the same way,
Yeah.
no matter how big, deep, or small the argument is.
Yeah.
I just get so scared so easily. So I've really had to adjust my lifestyle to that, because I
Yeah.
was so used to being the life of the party. I don't want to be anywhere near a party anymore. The
Word.
party is at my house in my backyard with my dogs.
That's what's up. And I really appreciate what you said about recognizing those things while they are like home and familiar. You
Yes.
know that, oh, even though it's familiar, this is something that is not conducive to my growth and it actually hurts. That level of self awareness is incredible because so many
Absolutely.
folks are drawn to the familiar. Like you see all these people talking about how, oh, yeah, I love a bad boy and he's got a fucking, history and he's got a record and goodness knows what he's on. And that's something that somebody's drawn to. And it's just like, you might want to get a little bit of help for that because you
Exactly.
actually deserve somebody who loves you and appreciates you and actually would be compatible. I was
Yes.
reading this thing about this woman talking about how, I meet these guys and I have like these like spiritual connections with them. And then a friend of hers intervened. It's just like, honey, that's not spiritual, it's pattern recognition. And
Exactly.
you're drawn to things that are familiar. And then things keep going down this path where it's not healthy for you. If you want to actually feel genuine connection, do the work to break those patterns and be
Yes.
receptive to something that's very different.
Yes. Once I had that realization, I enrolled myself into cognitive behavioral therapy and EMDR so that I can recognize my own behavior and change it, so that I don't have to pass this down to a susceptible 15-year-old who's watching everything that I do and learning from everything that I do and say. So,
Yeah.
in order to be the best version of yourself, you really do have to be self aware. My therapist once told me a bad mom never thinks that she's a bad mom. And I feel like being self aware of your flaws is the only way
Mm-hmm.
to grow. Being aware of what triggers you is the only way to heal. Being aware of what upsets you is the only way to avoid those situations. So
Right.
that has been, I will say, if you think of it like a caterpillar, it was like the gooey pupa stage. It was dark, it was gross,
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate a single minute of it. But once it erupted, and I don't even want to say that I came out of the cocoon, because I feel like I'm still actively healing. But once I understood the concept that I was changing, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like my entire mentality changed, because I was able to recognize exactly what upsets me, to the point where I'm like, okay, dial it back in. Or not even upset. That's not even a good example. Excites me. I get so
Sure.
excited that I start interrupting people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and then I lose my train of thought. And then
Yeah.
before I realize it, I'm telling you 3 stories in one.
Mm-hmm.
So my trigger is so different than someone else's, because traditionally you think of like, oh, she's so triggered, she's screaming, she's yelling, I am generally so excited or so elated in a way that it does feel uncontrollable. So I really had to bring that down. I was in an interview process recently, and she asked me what one thing that I'm working on myself is professionally and personally. Yeah. And I said my volume, because once I get excited, I just get to talking, and then woo, if you think that I'm upset now, you just wait until my country hit comes out, and then I start talking 9 hours about what we're gonna do because I don't. Right. Yes, girl. Professionally and personally. Yes. You got to bring it down.
Oh gosh, I hear you. To your point about having the awareness of the thing that you want to work on, puts it on your radar.
I record myself a lot when I'm in the classroom. Now that I'm an assistant principal, I don't necessarily have to do this anymore. But when I was a teacher, I would record myself every so often so that I could understand my mannerisms. And that is what taught me that I flip my hair all of the time. And I am constantly putting it back and putting it up and putting it to the side and then putting it down. I did not realize that until I recorded myself. And I had been teaching probably 4 years at that point. And it makes me wonder how many times per day in the last 4 years has every single one of these kids watched me just flip, dip, and switch my hair all throughout my neck. And then you look into that further, and I started Googling, why do I mess with my hair so much? And then I realized it was a sensory thing. So then I actually started using my own sensory toys that I have in my own classroom, and I used to squeeze it. And that's what I noticed. I get really nervous sometimes, and I just start flocking to my hair. So anyway, I know exactly what you're saying. Sometimes I just really have to assess myself, even when I don't think there's anything that to notice, because I may be totally emotionally regulated, but somebody else is still going to notice that my tag is showing in the back of my shirt. And you don't know that unless you just check yourself sometimes. So I'm a big proponent of holding myself accountable in those moments as well. I can say that on at least 3 of my observations and final evaluations for schools, talks at a loud volume has been on there. And so, but you don't really realize it until you record yourself back and watch it in that moment. And you're like, damn, I'm almost screaming at these little babies, but I'm really not. I'm just so excited about the water cycle.
Heck yeah.
I also want to note that once I started getting into the demographic of students that appreciated loud, not necessarily all the time, because that's a generalization, but I've noticed that when I get some students in the classroom who really appreciate attention-getting noises, that they were more drawn to me. So I had less corrective behavior in a lesson than I would have otherwise. Now, there are some instances in some classes where you get students that just don't appreciate loud noises at all. And I would absolutely tone it down. You would just consciously have to. It's a lot of work, but it takes, I'm specifically thinking back to one specific student who covered my mouth one time, and I was like, got it, noted. Okay, we're going to bring it down. Thank you. But they're just so sweet about it too, but yeah, it's, you have to work on yourself. And that's the word, work. You have to physically work on yourself, and it is actual work. And I do know exactly what you mean when you have a flaw that they deem that you need to work on it. But all you got to do is just look at someone else, and they'll understand exactly what you're going through. That's a perfect rendition of what we need in a quality skill set over here. And so you have to go where you're blessed and celebrated and not tolerated.
Clock that. That is your bar. So when it comes to your experiences being in the classroom and the types of students that you've worked with, the work is challenging because you have worked with at-risk youth.
Yes.
You've worked at folks that cannot verbally communicate.
Yes.
That have physical outbursts. And every time I've heard you talk about the work itself, we won't get into the surrounding bullshit, but the work itself, the stuff that actually matters, you have always come at it with a sense of gratitude and purpose, and you always have a solution for these kids.
Yes.
So would you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I feel very blessed in my career, and that I have gotten to do exactly what I wanted to do every single year that I have been in education. There's never been a year where I have had to settle. Specifically as a special education teacher, there is such a vast need for special educators that I was able to essentially pick where I wanted to go. And so if I wanted to do kindergarten, that's where I was. So I will say that I was able to be put into positions that I was already prepared for. But on an individualized level, you don't know these students when they come in. You have to genuinely learn what they're going through. So I could tell that one kid cussed a lot, and it was at inopportune times because it got him attention. It was attention seeking behavior. So I started pretending like I was going to repeat him in order to get his attention, but I never would. And then at first, that's how we built a rapport. So like, for example, if I said, what's a word that says and he said mother effer, but the full word, I'll put myself for your podcast. And I said, mother.
You could let it rip.
Okay, good. So, you know, I said, what word starts with motherfucker? And I said, mother. Mother starts with M. Mommy, mama. And so you can get on their level and, you know, like, so for example, you have these really hard days because you don't know what these children are actually upset about, right? So like, that's what I would really get upset about. I had one student that hurt me real bad, kicked, hit, slap, punch, bit, threw, you name it. Well, I found out that it's because no one understood his version of sign language. So I just taught us both sign language and got him down to 0 aggressions. And he was able to be placed back into his generalized classroom at his regular zoned school instead of being bussed in to our state school. So things like that, you just really have to understand what is needed. So generally the loudest in the room is the one that has the least amount of love. And that's one thing that, you know, we could tie it back to everything else. I wanted to be someone's Miss Love. And so I genuinely, there was no dismissive case in my school. There was no dismissive parent in my situation. What I'm trying to say is I never dismissed a parent. If they were concerned about an IEP, we had that IEP meeting. If we were concerned about the food, I brought in, for example, I found out someone loved Slim Jims. And so we bought Slim Jims when we went grocery shopping, and that was what he ate for me. And so I could come back and say, your son ate today. And actually just be genuine. So where there's a need, you can fill a need. And if I can't find it, I'm going to get someone that can help me. But I generally rarely have to resource out because we're the ones that spend the most time with those students, right? We're the ones that spend. So I was able to take that mentality into leadership as well. And when I became an assistant principal, it was at a school that was unlike anything I'd ever worked at. It was at an age range unlike anything that I've ever worked at. And it was in an area that I was not familiar with at all, ever. And I came in completely blind with no orientation, no nothing. But I was able to take that individualism mentality and expand it in a generalized manner. So my first day on the job, I just went up to every single teacher and asked what they needed. And I delivered. If I had to order it, you know, I would get it to them that day that it was delivered in. But things that they genuinely needed right then, I would go and stop what I was doing to go get it for them. So things like that, like when you have really serious issues, you just have to insert yourself. And I know a lot of people aren't confrontational, but one thing about me, we're going to figure it out.
You're locked and loaded with your cigarette butts and your trailer hitch.
And my empty carton boxes in the back. I have never smoked a day in my life, but I'll be dadgummed if I have not used those. As when you cut them open, they're white and you can color inside of them. Yes, 100%. They say, you know, like, well, teachers who are like, oh, we don't have any resources. Baby, I was never bored as a child. I will make them. Like, so another thing is students who have dexterity issues, fine motor skill challenges, right? So it's so easy to pop in and say, well, we can buy tools for them. But what if your school district can't, right? So the first thing that I would do is introduce clothespins, and I would cut a paper plate and in the ridges write their name, and on the clothespins write the letters of their name, and they have to transfer the clothespins to the letters to match them up. that promotes enough dexterity overall to the point where those tools will help. But if you just went right into, well, we can buy this, that's not going to just necessarily fix anything. You have to actually focus on the skill at hand. So
Right.
with that mentality, it really has just helped me a lot of like, what is the actual root of the issue? So like, even in arguments, with my everyday life or with every people that I love the most, if they're upset about something, what is the actual issue that you're upset about, and what can
Yeah.
I do to help? I'm not negating what you're saying. I totally hear you, but is this what you're actually upset about? Or is it because this happened,
Sure.
and because of that happened now this, and so that totally
Right.
changed your plans, and now you're upset about that? Because I totally get that. We just need to actually understand. So when you have language barriers, honestly, the only option is to learn each other's languages. And so having the patience, the wherewithal, and
Yeah.
the time to do that has been a blessing to me, because maybe it's not English. I got my undergrad in Florida, where I interned at a school where there were 98 different spoken languages, and English was
Wow.
either not in the home at all or was their
Right.
second language. So that's
Sure.
how I was introduced to the world of teaching. And I just kind
Right.
of generalized that into special ed. And then when I transferred all of those skills into gen ed leadership, I was able to take it down to that level. It's really just about harnessing your energy into what matters instead of complaining about what you can't change, because at the end of the day, you really can change it. You just have to figure out how.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. So you have some great skills and insight on how to adapt to an environment in order to help people. That is rare. We are seeing almost like a loss of empathy and a lot of disconnection.
Yes.
How do you feel that people can do better?
That is a great question. So, my big philosophy was that I was not a product of my environment. I was a product of the way that I raised myself.
Yeah.
And that may be spoken in regards to my childhood, but that can also be applied to any form of your life, right?
Hmm.
So, if you are in a situation right now where you're angry at home because your boss is really mean to you at work, for just an example,
Right. Yeah.
you may feel like there's not much you can do about it. Use your time at work to apply to other jobs. Get back, stand up. I will never again just smile and wave as I watch someone actively screw me over. I
Hmm.
will maybe not confront them in that moment, but I'm absolutely concocting a plan in my mind that makes sure that this behavior does not affect me long term. Another thing is, if you don't like your neighbors, right? And for example, it may not just be easy to move, or they're not going to move, right? I have no problem just not talking to them. Yes,
Yes.
whatever your environment may be, you do not have to engage. You do not have to insert yourself. You can absolutely do things that avoid conflict, that change
Right.
your environment for the better. So, like, if two people are fighting about a tree, I learned that tree law is very serious. I learned this recently.
Yeah.
I just took my LSATs for law school, and I learned what tree law was. So if two neighbors are fighting over a tree and they're actively arguing about it to the point where the police are getting called, it doesn't matter who's upset about what. It's the law that matters. And once I started thinking about that as well, like, that changed my life quite a bit. So, for example, you have the right to remain silent does not have to be applied once you're in handcuffs. You don't have to actually insert yourself into a position in order to be involved. You don't have to tell everyone everything in order for you to obtain information that is needed to fulfill a task, right? You don't need to explain yourself or defend yourself when someone misunderstands you. It is okay to just improve yourself within your actions. I learned that when I stopped telling people or fighting or arguing or proving or defending verbally, and I just said, okay, that's cool. And then I continued to do what I was going to do, that it
Yeah.
proved that I was right in the beginning anyway. That is ultimately how, I was over explaining myself, and
Yeah.
I have something to prove. And when I dropped that mentality, I feel like my entire mentality changed. Everything about that changed. I don't prove myself to anybody anymore. I don't announce really anything anymore. And if I do, it's just pretty much to let the people in my immediate circle know. I guess in summary, if you see a need, fill a need, and don't let your plans change just because your plans changed.
Nice. I got 2 more questions for you.
Perfect.
All right. This is something that can be in general about something specific. What is your favorite thing about people?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I really love the Grateful Dead because we form a sense of community whenever we go places, and we just like pop up mini cities. And I swear to God that resourcefulness is the best thing about human beings above all else, right? So if you go and you don't have shoelaces for your shoes, someone might not have a bunch of shoelaces, but I'll be gosh darned if we don't cut up cardboard in a spiral to create one long string and
Right.
tie it up together, and you have that sense of community in a bunch of other places, right? But that's what really drew me to the Grateful Dead. I grew up in isolation. I grew up not having a lot of community around me. And when I was introduced to that world, when I was 15 years old, I adopted it as my personality. And as I sit here at 36 years old, I'm still a massive deadhead. And I even went to Bobby Weir's his memorial, and my photos were published in a national publication. So,
awesome.
like I say my favorite thing about people is that resourcefulness, but that resourcefulness is what got me where I am now. I saw that resourcefulness in people, and I drew that in, and I adopted it, and it became a part of me until the point where I was absorbed by the community, to the point where I became a member of the community that was a public figure, if you will. It was basically by accident. And I'm not saying that I'm some hotshot in the Grateful Dead community. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that I embraced that community, and that community embraced me right back. That's what I love about people.
It is also really cool when you go to an event and you meet these world famous musicians and you're like, "Hi, I'm Dr. Scavo." And they're like, "Yeah, I know, I follow you."
I know, that's happened to me twice. And the funniest thing is when I met Otil Burbridge in 2018, it was because I was just having a really hard time. And my friend was like, "Well, if you can get up to Colorado, you can see him, and it'll just get off your mind of what you're going through." And I actually ended up meeting him that night. And fast forward years later, I worked his show. I've actually worked his show 4 separate times now. But the first one, I was like, "I met you in 2018 and I named my dog after you." And he was like, "Yeah, I remember." And I was like,
"Yep.
No, you don't.
Those pictures of the two of you together are so cool because y'all look like you're just buddies. Like you've been doing this forever.
I know.
You just have matching spirits.
Yeah, he's such a sweet person. That happened to me another time where not that he knew me specifically, but Dennis McNally is Grateful Dead's publicist. And when Dead and Company came around, there was this music festival called Skull and Roses. And so Dennis McNally did the PR for all of them. Side note, Dennis McNally also wrote a book called What a Long Strange Trip It's Been, about the Grateful Dead. When I was a homeless teenager, I had that book and I carried it with me. I want to say everywhere, but that's I mean, it was in my car a lot. And anyway, I did carry it with me almost everywhere I went. And I get to this music festival to work, and he's like, "Allison from Kansas City?" "Yeah, Dennis McNally of the Grateful Dead, I take it." Like, it was just, And so I just became so overwhelmed with emotion, and I really respected that. I worked for him the year after. And then in a really strange turn of events, I worked Little Feat in Kansas City, and Dennis McNally was also their publicist. So when my editor said, "Hey, we have a journalist who's interested. Her name is Allison Scavo," Dennis replied back with, "Oh, I know her. I love her. Tell her I said hi."
Word.
And yes, so things like that. Like when you fully embrace a community to the point where the best part of that community becomes your personality, they will embrace you as well. Maybe not in the way you expect or want or feel or think, but like that Grateful Dead community embraced me just as much as I looked up to them for literally my entire life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Random question. Do y'all ever do like craft exchanges at these shows?
Yes. So specifically Billy Strings does.
Oh, hell yeah. I love
Yeah.
Billy Strings.
Okay, so I've worked him twice, and
Nice.
I've been to multiples of his shows in general. And
Awesome.
they do. I'm gonna get off this call and I'm gonna be like, that's the word for it. But it's a pin. They pin
Okay.
you, a clothespin. But
Okay.
generally they will paint the pin or color the pen in some way, put glitter on
Yeah.
it maybe, but they'll put something on it, like an actual trinket. So like my son was pinned with a rooster and he got cock pinned. And so things like, it's really funny. So my friend took this idea and made a business out of it called the Itty Bitty Hat Committee. And now she sells these trinkets
Nice.
that you can pin people with. And, but a
Oh,
lot
how
of people
fun.
will, yeah. So a lot of people will put like, butterflies on them or,
Yeah.
and all night long you're just trading pins out. It's very much like the Taylor Swift community of the friendship bracelets, but it's pins. And I
Okay.
think it's so cute. In the Grateful Dead community, we do gift each other a lot, but it's not specific to the pins like Billy Strings. It's
Sure.
yeah, the Grateful Dead has miracles with their tickets, obviously, where you get miracled in. But you can be on lot and people will just walk up to you and be like, this looks like you look like you need this. So one time that happened to me, someone came up to me and was like, you look like you need this. And it was
Yeah.
a bumper sticker that said, the best teachers are deadheads. And they had no idea. They don't know me. I don't know them to this
Whoa.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I am literally getting my master's degree in special ed at the
Yeah.
time I was in Colorado. And
Right.
so anyway, things like that. Like, yeah. So yes, there are, but Billy Strings is very specific to their clothespins. And
Yeah.
in Grateful Dead, it's just kind of like random.
Yeah. I'm going to a show in, oh gosh, it's in less than 3 weeks. And we put together a private group and we're putting together a craft exchange. And
Nice.
people are doing little corn dog trinkets. So like
Love
a
it.
crocheted keychain and somebody made patches. So I was like, well, I'm gonna make coins. So I've got coins with the
Beautiful.
band logo.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So I've got them in zinc, copper, and bronze right now. It's all 100% reclaimed materials. So yeah, I'm stoked about it. First time
I'm
I've done a craft exchange at a concert.
I'm so proud of
Yeah.
you, dude. That's amazing.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I'm so
Yeah. Hell
stoked.
yeah.
It's become obsessed. I freaking love the metal community, man. Metalheads are so awesome.
I do too. I personally cannot do metal music for very long bouts of time, but I
Sure.
will say some of the nicest people on the planet are metalheads. I have never
Yeah.
seen someone fall on the ground and pick someone up as quickly as I've seen a metalhead.
Hmm.
I've never seen someone stand up for a child as quickly as I have seen a metalhead stand up for a child. I have never
Hmm.
seen someone surround women who are being yelled at by someone else but a metalhead will insert themselves, get away from her, walk away from her.
Hmm.
And I've seen that crap at Grateful Dead shows where I'm the one that's walking up and being like, walk away from her, quit yelling at her. And everyone looks at me like, dude, you almost just got hit. He's not going to hit me. He's a coward. Metalheads get that mentality, whereas
Right.
deadheads, we had to be taught it because we're all about peace and love. Nah, metalheads get it.
Yeah.
Metalheads get it.
Yeah.
Metalheads go to shows to get yelled at so that they don't yell at everyone. And
Nailed it.
yes,
Nailed it.
I love that. And I get that into my soul. I can only handle it for about 13 minutes at a time.
13
And
minutes, very specific.
that is
Yeah,
in
and that's fair because it's sensory, and then you've got the lights, and then there's heat fluctuations because of the fire shows and things. It's definitely a lot to handle.
yes,
Like, I'm great at festivals. You know me. I've never
yes,
met a stranger. I'm out there and I'm having a great time.
yes,
My wife can only handle so much. She has a social battery and the threshold is very particular. So festivals, I do. Or if it's like strictly a metal show, I'll do
yes.
that. Unless it's at like a stadium and the band that we want to see is headlining, and if we don't want to see some of the openers. So I'm totally fine with that. But if I'm going by myself, I mean, absolutely, I'm there for the whole thing, and I get it. I respect it.
Yeah, I say that I can only handle about 13 minutes unless it's Gojira and corn. I have noticed that they
Gojira,
were
hell
my
yeah.
threshold boundary exception.
Nice.
Gojira was very well put together. Their
Mm-hmm.
pyrotechnics were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Corn, I want to brag on because I was there working as a photojournalist alone
Yeah.
with my teenage son who was 13 at the time. And my editor had asked for a pass, but then ended up not needing one. And so they
Yeah.
actually ended up having two for us coincidentally. And when Corn found out that I was alone with a child, they did not want to separate mother and child. So they gave my son the extra press pass that we already previously earned.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's not like we stole anything or that they pulled a
Yeah.
string for us. That we happened to have this and they gave it to him. And I actually happened to have a second camera. So I gave it to him. And Zion's
Awesome.
pictures of Gojira are some of the best photos I've ever
Nice.
seen of a concert in general. And then when Jonathan from Korn found out that a teenage boy was in there, most people, most musicians expect a social boundary where you can't get close to them if they
Okay.
come to the stage.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
just, no one's ever said this, but like if they get close to the stage, it's just common for you to zoom in instead of getting up in their face, right?
Sure.
Jonathan, I noticed, walked up to Zion. Jonathan, I
Yeah.
noticed, got closer to Zion. Jonathan, I noticed, would have ripped open his rib cage so that Zion could have gotten a better look if he needed to. Yes, it was very sweet. He was very much accommodating this young fan, and mom was just in the back doing her thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I will say I have the most amount of respect for Korn that I have for any band ever. And mind you, I love Korn. Freak on a Leash went triple platinum in my car when I was 16. And their album before that, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my
Follow
head.
the leader.
Okay, thank you. That one was significantly better in my opinion, but Freak on the Leash was the one that got all over the radio, so that's what was ingrained in my head. But so you do have like souls like that where it's just like you didn't let the fame hurt who you are at all.
Right.
You recognize that there's a 13-year-old boy who's looking up to you right now, and you remember what that looks like, what that feels like, and you made sure that you weren't a dick. And man, I major kudos. He didn't have to do that. And T-Mobile Center didn't have to do that. The Pitch didn't have to publish Zion's pictures separately. You know, no one had to accommodate us the way that they did, but every single person aligned in a manner that was like, yes, this is a teenage boy who deserves his moment. He didn't even ask for it. All he did was give gratitude and thanks and appreciation literally all night long. And he followed all of the rules and just made sure that he was, I don't know, it was just really, 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 really sweet and wholesome. And when the Pitch published his paper, his article, they said this is the youngest journalist on staff or youngest photographer on staff.
Yeah.
So they published
that's amazing.
Without me even asking them. It was just very, very sweet.
Awesome.
So yeah, that sense of community in the metal community is unmatched. I can say that with certainty.
I'll tell you, I've been part of like fandoms for, I won't even say how long. It's been decades. It's been several decades. And hands down, I gotta say, the metalhead community has been the coolest, most welcoming, emotionally intelligent community that I have ever been a part of. It's wild.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about gatekeeping metalheads. Those are the people that we listen to the same music. They're not part of the culture. They think they are, they're not. The metalheads I think about are like 6'4", look like they could take anybody out, but they unlock the lock screen on their phone and, their background is like a small dog, and then they're FaceTiming their grandkids from the mosh pit to let them know, hey, I'll be home later. They're playing your song right now. That's the community that I know. We
100%.
only gatekeep the pit to make sure that nobody's overindulging, not getting hurt, not hurting others, checking for, any signs of injury, picking people up. If somebody's dehydrated, we get them out of there. We get them hydrated. They're just the best community, man.
So one thing that I noted at Korn, and I put this in my publication when I wrote the article at Grateful Dead shows, people drop and faint and pass out so frequently that if your phone flashlight is on and you wave it, that means you need medical attention. I looked
Smart.
around and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, everyone here needs medical attention. Everyone has their flashlight. No, no one needed medical attention. Everyone was just partying. And it took me a minute to
Yeah.
realize that they're not calling for help because
Different
no one
code.
needed help. Everyone
Right.
understood how to control themselves.
Yeah.
And I was very shocked.
And we
I,
clock it and we look
yes,
for each other. We look for these signs. This was back when I was in high school. I used to go to raves, like underground raves in New York City. And you want to talk
nice.
about people who needed medical
Oh
attention.
my God.
But just like the mental disconnect, the malaise, and the lack of concern was astounding. But
Exactly.
also, people go to raves to get fucked up and, to do illegal shit and all that kind of stuff. So when somebody's ODing in the bathroom, they're just like, oh, they should have done better. And it's like, no, we as people who are
Yep.
conscious need to help take care of people. But like that whole scene, that it was not about that.
Yep.
So I was
Exactly.
like, I was the only straight edge person at the time at raves. This is before I had my moment. Thankfully, it was
Sure.
after raves because I could have been OD'd on a floor too.
Yep.
But it's just wild. Like, oh, music scenes, concert goers, it's all the same culture. It's absolutely not. Like, even in your example, like the difference between like deadhead culture and like metalheads.
Yep. Yep. Big
It's
time.
amazing.
That reminds me, if you are struggling and you are going through something like what just came out of Electric Forest, and you are reading this or listening to this, and I don't know if you know what just happened at Electric Forest, but there was
Mm-hmm.
an incident with someone who, we don't know all the details yet, but an infant was discovered in
Jesus.
inside of the porta potty. And if you are
My
alone
goodness.
and you use drugs, please call the overdose prevention hotline before you use. If you go unresponsive, they will call and get you Narcan without police judgment. And if you
Wow.
are a new mother or you are a maternal figure who needs help, advice, postpartum support, please call 833 TLC Mama, which is 852-6262.
Thank you for that. I just pulled up the article and the headline. Obviously, it's an attention getter, but the
Sure.
fact that you provide us with some resources is impactful, and that is definitely something that I will blast
Yeah.
and share that message. It's
Thank
important.
you. No matter what community you belong to, you matter, you matter, you matter, you matter.
Yeah, that's the truth. All right, friend, are you ready for the final question?
I am.
All right, here we go. What does success mean to you?
Okay, so initially, it's really hard not to say, obviously, to be the best. Right. But that doesn't inherently mean that you're successful. And I have had to learn that the hard way as well, because I have ran into situations where I feel like I did everything I was supposed to do. I followed everything to a T, and there was someone who did it better than me. And so just because my best didn't mean that I was the best, doesn't mean that it wasn't the best that I could possibly do. So success to me means that if you have truly and genuinely, with integrity, done the best that you can personally possibly do, then that is success. It doesn't matter if it's on a long-term scale or a short-term scale. If you are going through it and you cannot get out of bed, but by golly, when you went to the bathroom and you brushed your hair, that is success to me, because you gave 100% of yourself that day. Maybe tomorrow you'll get up and take a shower, maybe not, and that's okay too. Because if that's what your best is right now, then that's what we're here for you to support. And if your best is earning a 4.0 at a PhD, that doesn't necessarily inherently cover all of the situations that happened while you were earning that. So you may have gotten a 4.0 in your PhD in spite of daily challenges. So the fact that you even got a PhD is success to me, in my opinion. When I was first starting out, my dad told me, you know what they call a doctor who passed his MCAT by 1 point? And I said, no. And he said, a doctor. So it really just does not matter how well you think you're doing. If you think you are the best, it's definitely going to be proven to you that there is someone out there who is better than you. And when I learned that, I even in relationships where I was like, well, what if he leaves me for someone skinnier? There are a lot of skinnier women out there, and that is not my problem. If someone has an issue with the way that you are because you are not their version of what they view, that is not a reflection on you. Success to me is when you personally have done everything you possibly can to put your best foot forward, and even the smallest of goals have been achieved. That's success to me.
Love it. And so important to recognize that the situation creates different opportunities. Our best when things suck is going to be different from our best when things are ideal.
Absolutely. 100%.
And addressing that's so important.
Yes, 100%. And I've seen both ends of the scale. I've locked myself in a closet so that nobody could see me because I didn't want anyone to see me. But coming out of that closet alive was a success story for me.
Yeah.
That may be someone else's failure story. That may be someone else's trigger. That may be someone else's worst day of their life. But to me, I saw the light differently when I came out of, I'm talking about a literal closet for the listeners here. I locked myself into a closet and refused to come out until I adjusted my attitude. And I came out with a permanently adjusted attitude. And sometimes you just have to get through that gooey pupa stage in order to be the butterfly version. And sometimes you're going to go back into the gooey pupa stage while you're becoming the butterfly, or when you already become that version of the butterfly. It's an everlasting world of adrenaline that we live in. And sometimes we have to adapt to that. But so long as you do the best that you can, that's success to me.
Boom.
Yes.
There it is.
Love to see it.
Well, I'm so stoked for what's ahead for you. It's just continually onward, upward, and to the next big, hairy goal. You've got Harvard next.
Yes. Law school. I can't believe it. I'm so
unbelievable.
I can't believe it. I'm still in shock from it all. I'm not even going to lie. I did get accepted into the Harvard Extension School, which is for non-traditional students. So I don't know if while I get my prerequisites, that's what I'm going to, continue to do. I might move up there and go full-time and be a traditional student and not go through their extension program anymore. But either way, whether it's just like what I was saying before, if you go through their extension program or you go through their traditional program, you're still a Harvard student.
Incredible.
Crazy.
I love that. So Dr. Scavo is soon to become Dr. Elwoods.
Yeah, literally, right?
With the little dog and everything.
With the little tiny puppy. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, well, definitely keep me posted.
Thank you.
I thrive by watching you thrive. It makes me so elated to see how you are just continually propelling forward. You're doing a wonderful care, raising Zion.
Thank you.
You're staying above all of the stuff just getting thrown at you. And you're just like, look, I am not okay.
Right.
However, this is what's next and I will do it.
Absolutely.
This is what I need from you guys. And if you're here for it, thank you. And if you're not, live your best life. There's not a seat at my table for you.
Exactly.
We're success stories here and we're going to get through it.
Yep.
And you share the ugly and the good. And you've got no shame about it. And I respect and I love you for that.
Thank you. Time is going to pass no matter what. And so I'm going to spend it doing what's going to be best for me. That's just the way it is. I hope that that's not selfish, because honestly, if I didn't have that mentality, I still think I would be back where I never wanted to be in the first place.
Yeah. And by having that goal of knowing where you want to go, you're able to better serve your students and the artists and your clients and your son and your community. So yeah, we've got to fill our own cups in order to share our blessings with others. So fill your cup.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. That's a child's book. Also, the book is teaching children how to fill other buckets from people's whose buckets are minimalized. Yeah.
Yeah. And first and foremost, we got to take care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't, what do we have to share?
100%. Yeah. Well, thank you for this. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for being flexible and for being so generous with your time. I appreciate you and I love you. And I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. Thank you. Love the photos. Love the journey. Love you.
Thank you for this.
Us. Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep in touch. In the meantime, continue to thrive. Say hey to Zion for me.
Thank you. Love you so much.
Love your guts, babe.
Bye.
Thanks for being here. New episodes go live every Monday and Thursday. Subscribe, share, and follow Smashing Success Stories on Threads, Instagram, and YouTube. Bonus content and exclusives are available to patrons. Check out patreon.com/Smashing Success Stories for membership tiers and details. And always remember, whoever you are, wherever you are, just know that you are loved and that you are important. We are in this together. Till next time.